John Grisham, George R.R. Martin, and more authors sue OpenAI for copyright infringement. So this is great news. And here's why all of us, even if you're not an author, should be praying that these people win their case. I explained a while ago how AI scrapes the internet for content that is both public domain and copywritten, steals equally from both, and then amalgamates it into something that is quote unquote new. And I explained why this should be illegal. Some people left comments saying, hey, grow up, dude. This is what artists have been doing for centuries. Well, first of all, I didn't become a comedy writer, so I had to grow up. I don't want to wear a suit all day. I want to wear a comfy t-shirt. And you do the same if you could, jealous. But also, that's not what artists do, okay? It all comes down to intent. So, George Martin, was he inspired by Tolkien in Lord of the Rings? Of course he was inspired. He even says so himself. But his goal was to put in his 10,000 hours and to write something that was inspired by, but not the same as, so he could put his own soul into the work so it felt different and unique, although similar in some respects, okay? Now, would anybody, fan or non-fan, read a chapter of Game of Thrones and think it was from Lord of the Rings, and vice versa? No, of course they wouldn't. What if they changed all the names to Master Frodo? No, they would still know because they feel differently. The worlds are different enough and they're written differently enough, okay? So you wouldn't be confused. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of Lord of the Rings, but I love Game of Thrones. So if they were the same, I would love them both, but I don't, okay? And all of it comes down to intent. George Martin's intent was not to steal Lord of the Rings and just knock it off. His intent was to put himself into the work, his soul into the work, so it felt different and unique, but yes, he'd be standing on the shoulders of a writer before him. Intent is really important. If you were to ask ChatGPT to write another installment of Game of Thrones in the voice or style of George Martin, what is AI going to do? It's going to spit out something. The intent is to mimic. The intent is to fool you, right? Even if there's a disclaimer on the top that says this was written by AI, the intent is to make you think, really? See, there's no difference. It's just another installment of Game of Thrones. See how similar it is? See how you were fooled? That's the intent. His work deserves to be protected. His intellectual property should be protected in the court of law and not stolen by a computer. Intent. Let's do a thought experiment. And I know what you're going to say. I didn't come on social media, so I would have to think. Well, fair point, but I promise this won't hurt. So imagine Gucci releases a brand new handbag that takes the world by storm. And all the other brands are like, hey, let's do our version of this bag. It's a big seller. Is it creatively suspect? Yeah, but there are differences enough that, it's okay. But if someone else were to knock off this Gucci bag so that the logo is the same, the stitching is the same, it looks exactly the same, so that you are fooled, that is called counterfeiting. That's a knockoff. And I think you would agree that should be illegal, and it is illegal. Let's do another thought experiment. Imagine I go down into my basement. Well, I don't have a basement, but imagine I dig a basement. Wait a minute, you're digging a basement for a thought experiment? Will you stop interrupting? Okay, so imagine I go into my basement and I decide I'm going to take a $20 bill and I'm going to make art out of it. So I change the word dollar to dolor, which is Spanish for pain. And I change some of the imagery so that there are people in shackles. And now I'm making an artistic statement about the perils of capitalism or whatever. I'm taking something and building on it. I can do that. That's not illegal. That's totally fine. But now imagine I go into this basement, which is looking good now, by the way. I go into my basement with a very expensive copy machine, and I decide to just copy $20 bills. But I'm going to put a little spin on it. With the serial numbers, I've decided to add one serial number so that this is just the next installment of $20 bills. What's my intent on freshening up the $20 bill? My intent is to fool you into thinking that, this is money. It's called counterfeiting. That would make me wind up in prison, rightfully so. Comes down to intent. Now, there are people who are going to leave a comment. They're going to say, well, who cares? I hate Hollywood writers so much. I hope you guys lose. I hope AI wins this case. Which is shocking to me, because this case is really about whose rights are paramount. Is it the rights of the computer or the rights of the human being? Now, I assume you're a human being, but maybe you're not. But I'm going to assume you are, and if that's the case, I would assume that you'd be hoping that humans would win this case. It would be in your best interest, because court cases like this set precedent. These things have a way of spilling over into your life, affecting you. And the fact that you think that you're willing to trade these rights just so that you can have a free installment of Game of Thrones written by AI, you're willing to give away your rights for that? For a freaking copy of Game of Thrones? That's nuts to me. But if that's how you still believe, then ironically, you have changed my mind. I now agree with you. I now feel like, yes, the computer's rights should be more important than human beings because humans are too stupid to be trusted with these rights. They're too stupid to vote to vote for something in their own best interest. A computer, AI, would never make this mistake. Humans would. So you know what? You're right. You convinced me. The age of human beings is over. Long live AI. But now when AI tortures the world, at least I'll have a basement to hide in. See, always thinking ahead. For more, keep following me at Michael Jamin Writer.